Well, hello everyone. Here, show you right here. I'm talking about for job sequels, though, and what does it basically mean when we're talking about a sequel, though? By what you calls like for number two or number three, and a lot of times it sure seems that way. It's all about the training process. That if you're going to be offered a job, and let's just say that the same position that you applied for, but just only it's going to say number two, developer two, or maybe if it's going to be designer two or something like that, or the insight flyer two or something like that. So how do we explain about a job sequel? And a lot of employers will probably say too, it's all about just a newer edition or just an upgraded version or something like that of the work process or something like that. So a lot of times it sure seems that way to where do you really call it really a sequel, or just what you call it, just advanced technology? You could also maybe look at it as to where it just introduced you to the next level of technology and experience. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way. That when we think about a sequel, though, that's usually meaning to where a continuation of the story, of the training, and also the continuing. From the last updated postings or anything like that. But at the time, it sure seems that way that, can we really look at that? It's more likely is just toward, between the fifth grade and then the eighth grade. And like anybody probably want to know too, that, really, that if that's really, called a sequel, or if that's really just what you call, advanced, furthering in the word process or something like that. So at the time, you want to know too that whenever we think about a job sequel, though, that it's really titled for if it's number one or number two or number three. And I just really think it's over on the scale between like 1 and 5 or something like that, a certain level of education. And also that if you're going to be applying for a job, a lot of times at the level of experience that you have. So let's just say that if you're going to be applying for a job, maybe working in customer service, or maybe if it's if it's retail, or if it's maybe marketing, working for a marketing company or somebody like that, and then there's going to be a certain job that's going to be titled an executive, front desk executive 1 and 2 or something like that. It could also maybe be about phone coordinator or something like that. But still, that so a number of jobs that we've seen advertised, but still, that a lot of times that the category kind of goes by number one or number two. And so a lot of times you want to know too that job sequels, though, that do you have to have a level of experience and training just to be able to go to this next level of, okay, if it's titled number one, or if it's titled number two or number three. And so it sure seems that way, that if it's all measured by the character, huh? Like I say, that if you're going to be known by your company name, and then chances are that then somebody's going to maybe say that for experienced writer 2 is now we now have an opening for experienced writer 2, or maybe for advanced carpenter 2 or something like that. So a lot of times that we've heard of that. Maybe if we're going to be taking classes, we may have heard of these classes, such as if it's known as maybe if it's a sequel, or if it's just like what you call, it's like just the next level, the new versions of technologies, stuff like that. But so a lot of times, and most of the time, a lot of companies will probably say too that if there's going to be a sequel to a work process, and to where that for any source of training that's available, then chances are that it's really about is toward bonus features, or anything about maybe extra credit or anything like that, extra bonuses, whichever it is. But we all know that really put in a lot of the hard work and all that. But the way I think about it too, though, that whenever we think about a sequel, though, that is it really called a sequel, or if it's really just known as to where that that it's just like another way of how you want to promote your work. And so let's just say that if you put in an application for this work consultant professor, or maybe something such as maybe medical coding, or maybe anything such as maybe designing work or anything like that. And let's just say that if there's a position open for for fashion design or something like that, fashion design 1 or 2 or something like that, and you want to know too that whenever you check out these job opportunities, that some of them are going to be labeled for number 1 or number 2, and that you want to know too that really that if you have not gotten at least 4 weeks experience with the first level, then at the time you want to know too if you're qualified. But still, that in case of anybody that may want to know too, that really what exactly would you think that you'd be qualified for? But still, that but if we're talking about for sequels though, the job sequels that you have right here, if you got these electronic devices, and let's just say that if you're going to maybe have like maybe got I don't know about the Nokia, but any other source of brand names for these devices, and let's just say that if it's going to be for the for Model 1 or Model 2 or anything like that. But still, that whenever we think about job sequels, though, that most of the time, whenever I'm checking the job alerts and everything, it seems like that a lot of times you see something available for like visual design 2 or something like that, or graphic design 2 or something like that, web developer, or maybe analysis developer, or photographer, for a photographer 2 or something like that. So it sure seems that way that whenever you do apply for a job, especially if we're talking about maybe for like for introduction to the new steps of technology, something like that. So a lot of times I think a lot of it has to do with introducing to the new technology, but then also experience training also. So people may say that before you enter this next level of the technologies, that you had to have this type of training. So it's like, that whenever if I'm going to be looking at something like this right here, and people say that, the skills that are required for your attention, but I include this right here mainly so I can talk about, for how to be, how to get job requests, especially. I'm like, whenever people look at your profile page, and then, you might get a job request, somebody who's offering you a position that's open of some sort. But talk about for job sequels, and do we kind of call that? Do we call that at all a job sequel, or do we just kind of call that more like as to where that whenever you do put an application in, that it's just like going over your review to where that your work experience, and also what you're familiar with, and as well as the resources that you've had before and all that. But still, in case of anybody that may wonder too, that does it really make any sense to where you go ahead and just write a cover letter or a resume, and let's just say that resume 2 or something like that to resume 5 or something like that, and you want to know too that whenever you put in any sorts of documents, send them by email, whichever it is, and if you're going to be putting in any sorts of documents, sending any sorts of documents and exporting, or anything about importing or verifying any source of rendering any source of files, though, and we're talking about that whenever you put in an application to apply for a job, that it's like what does it usually mean whenever you see a job opening for like what you calls like for a flyer design 2 or something like that. But still, that in a lot of ways it sure seems that way, that do we really call those sequels, or we just really just call those mainly just like for promotions, and like everybody else might say that, well, it's not really a sequel, it's just another way of how companies promote your work, for the next level, or maybe years of experience and how it's pronounced. But really though that in case if anybody that might even say too that the highest it goes to, and let's just say if you're trying to get that promotion maybe on from PowerPoints, or maybe working for like companies like AT&T or US Cellular, or maybe Sprint companies, working for a telephone company, and you want to know too is toward that, whenever you first apply for that job, that for the consultant, or maybe for a flyer design, or maybe anybody who has experience with WordPress. I'm like, you building besides a blog page or anything like that, but still that it sure seems that way toward that whenever you do apply for a job, that you want to know too that really that even though on that document that says number 2 or number 3, that may not that may mean or may not be the sequel. But I just really think too that whenever it comes to understanding documents, though, anything that you're going to be working at, and anything that you're going to be applying for, and that you want to know too that is it called the sequel, or is it just known by as toward the introduction to the new workforce, like to the new things, the new technology, and maybe meeting new clients, especially. So a lot of times it sure seems that way that whenever you do apply for a job, though, and it's like you see these advertisements a lot of times, and they're gonna maybe say something like, executive, or maybe a photo manager or something like that, photo manager to copyright developer or something like that. And a lot of times you might see 1 or 2 on there, and it's possible that whenever you first started, that was to apply for a part-time position, and a lot of times that's more likely going to be the case. That whenever you first apply for the job, that you start out doing freelancer work before you actually got promoted to do this other position. So it's like jobs can be explained in a number of variety of ways, right? But still, that it sure seems that way that whenever you look at that transcript, and then whenever you look at all those documents of all the information from your employers, your current employers, and you're going to maybe want to know too is toward the past 5 years that you've been developing this resume, and there's going to be questions about that toward any promotions or your licensing or certifications, upon graduation, whichever it is. And you'll likely want to know too that the jobs that you were hired to do, and you want to know too, besides any promotions or raises or anything like that, you'll likely want to know too that what exactly does that mean whenever you put in an application for a job, for like maybe for graphic designer, or maybe for that flyer layout designer or something like that, for developer, visual developer. And that visual developer, it's like say that the title of the position is for a visual developer too. So it's like so a lot of times whenever you do see a sequel, and more likely that's really for like you have to have most of the time it sure seems that way that you have to have at least somebody to refer you to that position, and then also at least 5 to 10 years of experience. So when we think about a sequel, though, I guess that continuation into the story, for this promotion, and also we can also look at it as like another way of how to get promoted. And so it's like that whenever you look at the job advertisement right here, and you're going to see reading and writing in 2 hours, $10 more. So a lot of times, if you're going to be talking to a client, and let's just say that anything that you're going to be showing them and presenting to them, and let's just say that if it's any documents that are related to documents to about how the stock market's working or anything like that, but still but I just really want to mention about that to where that anything that goes on about the job, though, and like everybody else will probably say too, that really that whenever you are putting this together, you actually want to talk about anything about for being chosen means, but still that But on the other hand, that it sure seems that way to where that whenever it comes to jobs, though, the job sequel and everything, and you want to know too that say something the company found about your resume, and the found about you, and in a lot of ways, I just really think too that is it really called a sequel, or if it's really just known as toward it, that a promotion, and so that's why whenever you do apply for a job, though, that a lot of times it's like, you fill out the application process, but still, you see job opportunities, and sometimes it seems like that they're categorized by number one or number two, or maybe a certain level of skills or something like that. So a lot of ways it sure seems that way that at the time you want to know too that why is it that these jobs can't be given a new title? I'm like, or if it's supposed to be continuation in the story, or maybe that if it is a promotion, and more likely it's a promotion, but still, that if there's any source of promotion for a job, that you probably want to know too that if there's any specific name that you want to give to this position, or if anything that no that it's called number two for that reason. Advanced learner or advanced technology, or just if most of us will probably say too, you don't want to have to change the name for any reason at all. And a lot of companies will probably say that we don't need to change the name of the position for any reason at all. So if it's supposed to be go to the next level of training, and as well as being introduced to a new company and for what the company does there, and so a lot of times they're gonna say that the same title, but just it's gonna be called Opportunity 2 or Opportunity 3 or something like that. But a lot of times you want to know too that really that whenever we think about a sequel, though, you want to know too is to where that really that whenever we think about that, to where that if a lot of things were to remain the same constantly, and at the time you want to know too that really though that maybe after 5 years of developing the whole process, though, and you may want to know too that if you think that you want to go ahead and go by a new name, whichever it is. I'm like, I really don't know. I really don't know, to be quite honest with you, everybody. But still, that the way we think about that, though, is talk about for job sequels. That by every 5 years or so, that it sure seems that way. That if you're going to be applying for a job, that a lot of times it's like, you always have to look very closely at a lot of these job opportunities, because they're going to be looking at the level of experience. And most of the time, it's like, if you see a job opportunity in there for maybe for a marketing specialist, marketing specialist 2 or something like that, then that might require a certain level of experience. And that level of experience, and like anybody else will probably say too, well, not really. There are some jobs out there that might say that, at least 1 year of experience is all that's really asked for. And if anything, they'll train you on the job. And so there might be some things that may not have absolutely nothing to do with why that this is that this level right here is known as for the sequel or anything like that. But I tell you one thing, though, that whenever we think about that too, though, that is toward that whenever you look at the job advertisements, though, and you want to know too is to where if this is where the magic begins, or just knowing about is that everybody else might even say that whenever you do apply for a job nowadays, that it's like you're trying to sometimes that whenever you sign on to your account, that a lot of times it sure seems that way that whenever it comes to trying to recall and remember, something like a lot of times with me, though, whenever I put an application in, a lot of times that filling out your availability and also the position that you're applying for, but still, yeah, your educational experience, all a lot of that stuff. Yeah, well, my profile especially, but still, that I just really think too that whenever it comes to a sequel, though, that like everybody else will probably say too, that if you're going to be taking your career to the next level, we're talking about, yeah, a lot of challenges and then a lot of testing and also a lot of, like anybody probably say too, that whenever it comes to that promotion, though, that the first one seemed to be a lot easier than compared to level 2. And like everybody else will probably say, that if you're going to be playing a lot of those games, a lot of those word games or anything like that, playing a lot of games, and you're going to maybe see that, where there's going to be a sequel, included. And like I say, that's usually, challenging. It's very challenging. That there are some levels that people might find it. Some of it can be very challenging. Some of it can be pretty easily, whichever it is. But I just really think, though, that people might even say too that if there's going to be a sequel or an update that's going to be available, then for sure people might even say that a lot of times, yeah, you want to look for the familiar faces. Some of your coworkers and clients, whenever you move on to the next level, and let's just say maybe if it's around the summertime, if you do wind up getting promoted to go to the next level, and you might say is toward you see some familiar faces and you might see some familiar software that you've been trained to use. And so a lot of times, like everybody else will probably say too, especially like those clubs and, events and all that stuff that go on, that it's like if it's really about, looking at the familiar faces and all that. But I just really think too that whenever it comes to a job sequel, though, that everybody else might even say that, yeah, well, if you're going to be offered that job, but then level 2 is going to be available or something like that, or yeah, interior design 2, or maybe if it's a consultant or specialist 2 or something like that. So a lot of times I just really think it's all about the level of experience, but sometimes, like everybody else might say too, that really, it's the same title, but just more advanced features. But more technology, the new technology. But anyway, talk about the study about talk about for job sequels. Thanks for watching, everyone.